And Mr. Walters, I'm told that I kick off with you first. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Dan Waters, and I'm president of Dan Waters and Associates in Hickory, North Carolina. I am a lifetime resident of Tav County, graduate of Lenore University with a degree in economics. I served the people of Hickory as an insurance agent and broker for 33 years. During my tenure in the insurance industry, I have seen companies come, I have seen companies go. I have seen policies change and policies terminated. I have offered basic benefits with extended coverage, basic benefits plus major medical, and comprehensive major medical. At no time do these benefits require 2,700 pages of explanation, let alone 2,700 pages that either the client, their agent, or the congressional representative fully understand or have personally read. Now, agents and brokers are tasked with the challenging job of trying to explain this complex law to our groups and to individuals. Everywhere we turn, there is confusion, misinformation, questions about the programs offered, cost of premiums, tax ramifications, and more. In order to prepare brokers and agents, they have been attending seminars, webinars, reading the NADU Washington updates, taking the required PPACA certificate course, better known as, we call it PPACA. In addition, we have been keeping up with the latest technology tools of group clients as well as for individuals. Our goal is to be able to communicate the benefits in an understandable way, quote the accurate premiums, and a general array of fears and concerns of our clients with regard to new plans. Some examples of these concerns are, I'm hearing from my office on a daily basis like you have. I like my current plan. Why can I not keep it? Why do I have to pay for benefits I will never use, such as paternity benefits, birth control, pediatric vision and dental, rehab services? How will I pay for higher deductibles I must have in order to make my plan affordable? Do I qualify for a subsidy? Why do I not qualify for a subsidy? Why is my health care premium so much higher than before? And then some say, I don't want to pay for insurance. Why is it not my right to choose without having a penalty? Do our current medical policies need to be changed in many ways? Some reasonable party will agree that this is the case. Do we want to provide coverage for those who can't afford it, but need it or want it? Yes, definitely. Should there be a way for Americans with pre-existing conditions to keep or get coverage at a reasonable rate? Yes, of course. Is the government mandate Affordable Care Act requiring all policies meet the same minimum standards regardless of the needs for the stage in life? The answer, I would say, for the reaction of my clients, that would be a resounding no. As soon as the ACA became law, PPACA, Obamacare became law, our office phones were ringing with questions as to what it means for a client, particularly our individual clients. After the cancellation notices were received, new premiums were announced. Those calls and frustration of our clients increased exponentially. Since clients found their monthly costs more than doubled. An example of what I am saying is, my wife had a monthly premium of $396 with a $2,500 deductible, was canceled and will be replaced with a premium of $735 with a higher deductible. And as with many of our clients, she is choosing to go with a significant increase in her deductible in order to reach a reasonable cost. Since the recent announcement of the President that people can keep their current plans, a large portion of my individual clients are seeking to wait and do just that if the laws permit. A fear for the mandatory ACA will be detrimental to my community as a whole. We have experienced an economic downturn in the last decade, resulting in industries closing, a depressed housing market, and overall lowering of disposable income. While struggling employers are required to pay more in benefits, either they will be forced to reduce their workforce, contribute less to the employee's health plans, or drop those plans altogether. less income on the part of the business or the individual translates into less spending and less growth for our area. Thank you for your time to consider these important matters and for the opportunity to share my concerns. It is my hope that together we can come to a better solution that will allow health care to be fair yet affordable for employers and individuals without making it a burden to our society.
Thank you. Mrs. Overby.
I'm one of those who recently received an astronomical increase of my insurance rates from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. As you can see, I'm a woman and I'm healthy. My monthly health insurance premium for 2013 is $395.60. Beginning in January 2014, my renewal rate will be $713.11. This amount of $713.11 is higher than my mortgage and my second mortgage combined. This amount will in all likelihood continue to rise every year. I also have a higher deductible and higher out-of-pocket amount, but of course, I have maternity coverage, and I also can get free birth control pills, which at age 58, I'm sure I'm going to need both frequently. As we all know, President Obama, and on numerous occasions, was telling American people, if you like your health insurance, you can keep it. But we now know that the opposite was true. Now you can call this deception, deceit, falsifying information, fabrication, whatever, but the bottom line is no matter what nicety you give it, a lie is a lie is a lie. Our very own North Carolina Senator Kay Hagan was right there alongside Obama delivering the same message. Senator Hagan stated, and I quote, "People who have insurance they're happy with can keep it. We need to support the private insurance industry so that people who have insurance they're happy with can keep it." This is another lie. Women like me are being hurt by these lies and changes brought about by this unjust law. We now have fewer choices than we have ever had. I contacted my Blue Cross Blue Shield agent asking him what alternatives I have. His reply to me was, "No one is sure what's happening." He checked the subsidies amount, and because I'm married and my husband and I make just above the $62,040 amount, I am disqualified. Oh, and by the way, if I were not married and I could live with my boyfriend, we can make $45,000 plus each. That's $90,000 plus as a couple and qualify for these subsidies in the Affordable Health Care Act. And by the way, the name Affordable Health Care Act is just a lie by virtue of the title itself. It should be called the Unaffordable Health Care Act. This huge increase in my monthly insurance premium and out-of-pocket expense and deductibles does not supply any more coverage, nor does it provide better coverage. The American people did not ask for nor vote for this affordable health care. For people not to have a choice in keeping their insurance, to be required to buy insurance they do not want and be fined for not doing so takes personal freedoms away from every American. How Supreme Court Justice Roberts could have cast a deciding vote as constitutional is beyond any reasoning. If this, for the first time in our government's history, through Obamacare and some exchanges, we will be paying for abortions with our tax dollars. We can now go into the safe protective home of the womb and kill an innocent baby by this health care law. That is another thing that is beyond any reasoning. If this same scenario with my car insurance, I'd be calling another company, getting better rates and adjusting the coverage as necessary. Now, because of the 10 required government inclusions, I am paying an unfair price for less coverage. I did like my insurance coverage. Most Americans do. Another lie that is circulating in the present time is that most Americans do not like their coverage. There's an old saying that goes, tell a lie long enough and it becomes the truth. This is the foundation of Obamacare and Obama's administration, for that matter. President Obama wants his legacy to be Obamacare. This is what his whole presidential tenure was based. But the legacy is going to be Obamacare is a lie. We have the most wonderful healthcare system in the world until the president, for reasons of control, began dismantling it. As a woman, President Obama and Senator Kay Hagan have taken away my choice, and with my choice, my rights and freedom. I have talked to other women who are in similar situations as I am, and their policy was canceled altogether. I have friends who recently retired. Their policies were canceled under the Affordable Health Care Act. And others, well, they cannot get on the website, they cannot afford the insurance, and they cannot afford the penalty for not having the insurance. The bottom line of the truth, which we will not hear from this president, is this has never been about health care. It's about control. Think about it. A majority of Americans had some health care coverage. Why not let those people keep it? Our taxes are going up anyway. Who do you think is going to pay for Obamacare? Why not provide coverage for those who are without? This would be a win-win situation. Americans would be happy to keep their insurance. Those without insurance are happy because they have coverage. That's what makes sense if Obamacare has not been about control. But Obamacare is about control. What better way to control the lives of American people than through health care? It is the number one issue that concerns us all. It is the gathering of all kinds of information into one system about you and me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Long.
Good morning, Chairman Issa and the members of the committee in attendance today. Thank you for taking the time to come to our neck of the woods to learn more about how the new health care law is impacting our day-to-day lives. Too many times, leaders in Washington forget they represent real people with real challenges. You are to be commended for taking the discussion outside the Washington bubble. My name is Joel Long, and I am the CEO of GSM Services, Gastonia Sheet Metal Incorporated. We are a third-generation heating, air conditioning, and commercial roofing company founded in 1927. My brother Stephen and I own and operate this business and employ 146 co-workers. I applaud your efforts today to hold this hearing on one of the most important issues facing the citizens of our nation. I cannot think of an issue that touches more people than health care. For the purpose of my remarks here today, I would like to ask that you not look at me as a business. I would ask that you instead look at me as a job creator. As such, I would further ask that my remarks be received as coming from someone who has worked to help create, build, and improve the quality of life for those living in my community, as well as a provider for the foundation of a quality career for those who work in my company, my co-workers. I am the job creator who must live with the very decisions and policies Congress and the regulatory agencies establish, which either improve or inhibit my ability to create jobs. I am the job creator who believes our government must be a partner for our mutual success. I am the job creator who believes the business community has been asking for many years to be treated as partners with lawmakers, not as the opposition. In my limited time, I would like to touch on two of the most important ramifications we are experiencing in the business world related to healthcare reform. Rising insurance premium costs. One of the most talked about issues during the healthcare reform debate was that rising insurance premiums needed to be brought under control. I couldn't agree more. But in my experience, that's the difference between policy and the real world. For my company, while our rates have risen consistently over the last decade, we have maintained a strong partnership with our insurance company and co-workers, and believe our current insurance plan has evolved into a plan that is providing excellent coverage at affordable rates for our co-workers. I've included our 10-year history of rate increases. I've also included our current 2013 health insurance rates for you. In 2009, we transitioned to an HRA plan that allowed our co-workers to enjoy the low rates of a $10,000 deductible and also protect them and their families from large expenses in case of a health issue. Our plan is a partnership between GSM Services, our co-workers, and our insurance company. GSM Services pays the first $1,000 of our deductible, co-workers pay the next $2,000, and we both split the next $7,000 evenly. Total out-of-pocket expenses for our co-workers is $5,500 per year per family in case of a large health event. Most of our co-workers never exceed the $1,000 deductible GSM pays. In our 2012 plan year, GSM had a potential HRA medical liability of $481,500, and we only paid $41,532. Our prescription benefit under the HRA had a liability of $72,000, and we only paid $1,906. A testimony of our co-workers' usage of 85% generics. Our total HRA potential liability was $553,500, and we paid out $43,438. Numbers do not lie. This is a testament to the effectiveness of this strategy for GSM and our co-workers. Our company, our co-workers, and our insurance company were happy with this agreement, with this partnership. We were all successful. It was our plan. As of this date, we have been forced to change our renewal date from May of 2014 to December of 2013 to avoid the projected minimum rate increase of 30%, as our current plan will no longer be offered by our insurance company next year. We believe this minimum will be closer to 50% under the current conditions. This early renewal is an attempt to delay our increase as long as possible in the hope that legitimate changes will be made in 2014 so our company, companies like ours can continue to offer better and more affordable options to our co-workers. Confusion is my second part. There is no debate as to the confusion this new law has created. not to mention implementation. That said, we as businesses cannot operate on unknowns. We cannot plan or budget on what we do not know or do not understand. And as we work to understand the law, we now see the confusion of those who are charged with its implementation. The chaos of pricing, policy cancellations, and quality has caused instability. As business professionals, instability and chaos are our enemies. We seek real numbers that we can anticipate. A sweeping policy change like healthcare reform should have been better planned and implemented. The lives that are impacted by the instability of the new law are not statistics. They are the lives of real people. Thank you for your time today. I applaud your attention to our needs as citizens, this great nation, and ask that you fix this issue so that we can get back to the work of running our businesses and providing for our families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falls.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jason Falls, and I'm a licensed insurance professional in North Carolina. My purpose for testifying before you today is to share my understanding of how the Affordable Care Act is impacting individuals in our communities. In my role as an insurance professional, I discuss this impact almost daily. Residents of North Carolina have heard our president state that healthcare.gov and the Affordable Care Act will reduce their premiums and improve their coverage. They have also seen a failed rollout of the website and an administration making changes to the law on a regular basis. These actions have caused confusion and concern by many. I have met with some that have opted to wait out 2014 and elect to pay the penalties, leaving them uninsured and vulnerable to financial ruin if they have medical needs. While the President's words on November 14th gave a glimmer of hope to some, those individuals covered under the state and federal high-risk pools, known as Inclusive Health in North Carolina, received notification that their coverage would cease on December 31st as planned. Under her current coverage with Inclusive Health, Tina from Shelby pays a copay of $250 a month for a medication. Without the medication, her quality of life would be deeply diminished and could be life-threatening. Under the new plans offered under ACA guidelines, she would pay 25% of the retail cost of that medication, which is currently $28,000 a year, leaving her with a bill for one prescription of nearly $600 a month. That is in addition to her increased premiums. In North Carolina, people making less than the poverty level or more than 4 times the poverty level do not qualify for the subsidies that are supposed to make premiums for the new plans under Obamacare affordable. Lisa and Wayne have seen firsthand how Obamacare will impact them when they ran the numbers. Wayne is covered under Medicare because of serious medical issues, including organ transplants, and was being checked for cancer at Duke Medical this past Wednesday. His condition requires them to be at Duke often, so it's hard for Lisa to have a full-time job. They make things work on just $9,000 a year with the help of family, friends, and prayer. But that income is lower than the minimum of $15,510 required for a family of 2 to be eligible for subsidies. Without those subsidies, she can't afford coverage that is not eligible for Medicaid or any other coverage. She can't afford to cover herself under the new ACA compliant plans, which have a higher premium than the plans offered in 2013. Several restaurants I've met with have canceled their employer-sponsored health insurance and will reduce the number of hours of their workers to avoid mandates. The employees are finding that coverage, even with subsidies, are higher than the employer plan that they were covered on. As an insurance professional, I'm concerned with someone who chooses to ride it out without coverage. Some will because of the higher premiums or confusion of the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Others may out of disdain of a government that forces individuals to purchase a product that the government designs under threat of financial penalty. For those that choose to ride it out, the real risk is the fact that the ACA forces you to make a choice by the deadline. This year, March 31st. If you opt out, you cannot buy coverage later in the year without a qualifying event. So if I choose no coverage for me, and I have a serious medical condition during the year from an accident or disease, I run the risk of financial ruin for my family. The potential is far worse than the option the president touts, to just pay the penalty if you don't want coverage. As someone with intimate knowledge of my industry and as an American, I have serious concerns about Obamacare. What happens when Congress decides to work on our national debt, which they should, and the target is put on those subsidies? My purpose here today was to tell the story of my friends and neighbors. They are confused, concerned, mad, and fed up. We can't see the relationship between the value of the new plans and the dollars it takes from our family's budget. For those committee members that understand these challenges, I thank you. For those that don't, I invite you to spend the day with me as I visit with individuals and small businesses to see for yourself their concerns. I want to thank you for coming to our great state. I especially want to thank Chairman Issa for his leadership on the committee and our North Carolina representatives that serve on this important committee, Congressman Patrick McHenry and Congressman Mark Meadows, as well as Congressman Pittinger for being here today. You are all strong advocates for the residents of the state of North Carolina. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gauss.
Mr. Chairman, welcome to North Carolina, distinguished members of the committee. I've been asked to come here today to talk about the effects of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, has had on businesses and individuals in areas of my state. I would like to make 2 comments to the people listening to this. Please read my entire testimony, especially my updates from my last testimony 2 years ago in Washington. And please know that I am a non-affiliated voter. I have disdain for both parties equally. As you can see below,
Thank you.
as you can see below, I belong to 3 national organizations that span North America, so I asked some of my colleagues of 32 years to give me their input as well. I asked only for instances, good or bad, that they have first-hand knowledge of. No conjecture, no speculation, no pontification. I received multiple responses from Florida, California, Connecticut, Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Virginia, and I have heard from others since my deadline for the testimony. I will say that I was given a deadline, we were all given a deadline of Wednesday, and I asked your staffer, could we make it longer because things are apt to happen on a daily basis like they did this morning. So I don't have that written in my testimony. We can talk about that later. There are 2 words that have been pervasive in everybody's concerns: uncertainty and trust, or lack thereof. And our employees have added the word fear. When a person or a business has money to spend, they usually do not spend it without some degree of certainty as to what they will get in return. If they do not know what they're going to get in return, they will not spend it, or not spend as much. Across the country, especially in my area, businesses are hesitant to invest in any people, plant, or equipment because they cannot be certain of the ultimate costs and returns on those investments. They are not hiring people because of the unknown cost of Obamacare and other issues coming from federal and state governments. North Carolina employers and employers in 12 other states also have the added burden of employment tax increases imposed on them to pay back money the states borrowed from the federal government as their state unemployment funds went dry during the last recession and its extended benefits period. There is one known fact. All of our costs for health care have got to go up because the plan is adding heretofore non-insured people, many of whom will not be making a significant contribution, if any at all, to the premiums paid to health insurers. As written now, the majority of that burden will be on business community. And I please refer to my 2 positions on 2 insurance companies. I do understand underwriting and insurance products. We've heard from others, and these are direct quotes either made directly to me or to my colleagues. We're going to reduce headcount below 50 people. Because I pay 100% of my employees' health insurance premiums, I will take whatever raises I was going to give them and use them for their new health insurance premiums. Note 2, the health insurance is deductible expense for a group plan. The bonuses would have been taxed as income. So they're taking income taxes and turning them into health insurance premiums. I am creating more part-time positions that will be for 28 or 29 hours per week and making sure my seasonal or part-time help stays under 29 hours per week. I plan to make some full-time, fully benefited positions part-time and non-benefited. The rules for a variable hour employee are too confusing. They are too subjective. People, myself included, have been asked by their clients to payroll people for their company, but for less than 30 hours a week. A company in Southwest Florida has stopped paying for any employee share of health insurance until they know the numbers become more quantifiable. Staffing company in South Florida, trying to do the right thing, tried to offer a plan this October and had 160 people eligible for the plan to begin October 1, 2013. 17 signed up because they had to pay premiums. And I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I'll recognize myself for a first round of questions. Mr. Waters, have you ever seen another form of insurance that required that the pool, if you will, contain coverages that people don't want? For example, have you ever seen where somebody has life insurance and whether they're 18 or 80, they pay the same amount for that term life insurance?
No, I have not.
Mr. Falls, have you ever seen insurance like that?
No, sir, I'm not.
Prior to the Affordable Care Act, did you do health care insurance? And Mr. Long, obviously you dealt with this too. Did you do insurance based on that, or did you evaluate your pool and your insurance carriers evaluate the pool based on the unique characteristics of the pool? In other words, all of your 160 employees, Mr. Long.
Yeah, we always pull the insurance is based on that pool of people pulled together as a group coverage, and so it would be approached in that manner.
But it was the actual pool that you had.
The actual pool of employees that we had or that were going to be participating in the plan. Yes, sir.
And I'd like to follow up a little bit. Mr. Long, under the Affordable Care Act, if I understand, your catastrophic insurance, because you have a high deductible that you and your company pay, is going to change.
Yes.
Meaning you're going to pay more for an insurance that you almost never use because, in fact, your company effectively pays apparently almost all of the coverage between you and your employees, with the exception of the administrative cost of negotiating with hospitals for rates and the like. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, our plan, we are told, will go from the $10,000 deductible to the $5,000 deductible. That will be what we will be focused on. And so, yes, we will have less choices, and we'll be in a different situation with that going forward. But we do pay, the way it works now, we do pay the majority of those bills because most of our coworkers do not go above that $1,000 deductible that we pay. And then on the rate side, we also, our rate side, we pay 50% when employees start with us up to covering it fully in a 10-year period. So even their rates are covered.
The reason I asked it is there's been a lot of discussion about these deductibles and co-pays. In your case, your employees were essentially at or below that $5,000 level, weren't they?
Yes.
And the difference was what you chose to pay. But under the Affordable Care Act, if I understand correctly, they're taking away as an employer, your ability to pay that. And they're saying that it doesn't matter who pays it, the deductible has to be that amount, which in most cases, most people are complaining because their deductible went up in order to make it look more affordable.
In our case,
I just want to understand how it's affecting you and your choice to cover that on behalf of your employees.
They're changing our formula without our input, and so now we will be every employee and our company will be in a situation where we pay more for a different coverage and we were already happy with our coverage. And so yes, our employees pay $5,500 maximum. We pay $4,500, but almost no employees ever got to that point.
Now, Mr. Long, and I think for all the others that are insurance experts, if you will, apparently you've been working sort of best practices, same as Safeway and a lot of other much larger companies, to try to work with your employees to lower the cost of delivery of health care. Is that correct? You mentioned the 85% generics and so on. Your plan allows for people to get non-generics if they need them, but encourages them to spend their money wisely. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
One question, and I'm going to be respectful of the limited time for each round. Is there anything in the Affordable Care Act that does the kinds of things that Mr. Long has been doing? In other words, what in the Affordable Care Act encourages the individual and or the employer to drive down the cost of delivery of health care? Do any of you have any examples?
All I know is if somebody holds himself out as having one, then they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, that's an area that hopefully Congress will address, is the cost drivers, the things that Mr. Long has been working with his employees on. I will close by mentioning a couple of facts. On the Affordable Care Act, if you don't want insurance, as long as you're willing to pay a $5,000 individual fine up to, and a $12,500 family plan up to, you can choose not to have insurance. The amazing thing is if you can pay that fine, then you can choose to pay your own health care over and above that. I haven't quite figured that out. But I will note that every member of Congress, until next year, and every federal employee and their families, that's over 8 million people, receive a program called FEHBP, the Federal Employee Health Care Benefit. It is in fact reimbursed or paid for at 72 to 82% by the federal government, depending upon whether you're a postal or a non-postal worker. It does not age discriminate the way the Affordable Care Act is, and it has not changed to be, if you will, fully compliant with the Affordable Care Act. Oddly enough, the deductibles under the FEHBP are lower than under the new exchanges that the three of us as members of Congress by law have to go into. So I just want to put that in the record because you will be hearing, at least from this member and from Lacey Clay, Congressman Clay of Missouri, that every American should have access to that FEHBP, something that everyone from the president down to your postal delivery man has, and that at minimum, what we have as federal workers should be available to all Americans. And with that, I go to Mr. Bennett.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for mentioning that, and I join you in supporting your legislation that enables all Americans to have the same health insurance that members of Congress and federal employees have. I think that would be a useful and positive step. And in fact, this is not some partisan idea. In fact, this is something you've long supported, and I've been very supportive as well. Now, I want to address a question most folks, a lot of folks have. A pre-existing condition. A discrimination against somebody who has a chronic condition. Mr. Waters, in the state of North Carolina, let's rewind 2 or 3 years ago. If someone came to you and they had a chronic condition, were you able to get them health insurance as a result of a North Carolina program?
There's a North Carolina program called Inclusive Health that was able to do that, and so I thought we were addressing the program pretty reasonably at that time. So yes, North Carolina did a good job of that.
So Inclusive Health,
Yes,
which was a state-based initiative
that's correct.
that helped individuals with chronic conditions, a pre-existing condition, get health insurance.
That's correct.
Okay. So we were able to do that prior to the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare's passage.
That's correct.
Okay. So are you able to offer Inclusive Health for next year?
No, Inclusive Health has been terminated as of the end of December, so you can't write it anymore starting as of December 1st. It's over.
And unfortunately, that is a result of
Obama.
Okay. I just want to be clear about
That's
that.
correct.
So to say that someone with a pre-existing condition could not get health insurance in North Carolina that's reasonably affordable is simply not the case.
Right. That's correct.
Thank you. Ms. Overby, I was taught by my mother to not ask a lady's age. But let me ask you, your prior insurance plan, did you have maternity coverage under that?
No.
No. And you are required, your new plan requires you to have this. Okay. Okay. Is that somewhat absurd?
Well, yes, and it is. I'm not planning to have any more children, and it's not possible, so.
Okay. Likewise, I heard from a constituent of mine named Pauline, who told me that coverage for her 4-year-old daughter for maternity care, she did not find appropriate either. Okay.
Was the gentleman yield?
Sure.
Was the gentleman aware that the men at the table also have to have maternity coverage under the law?
Well, you beat me to the punch. I was going to ask Mr. Long. I was going to ask Mr. Long if he intended to have children.
Personally.
No, unfortunately, I will not. Yeah.
Probably not.
No. So this type of coverage that actually increases your costs is not helpful.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. Just trying to understand this. And your premiums are currently.
I currently pay $395.60.
Okay.
And it is going to go to $713.11. That's my monthly premium. Of course, my deductible and out-of-pocket and all that's going up too.
Mr. Long, in the economy in Gaston County and Mr. Falls' economy in Cleveland County are certainly hit a rough spot. And but Mr. Long, as a result of Obamacare, will you be able to employ more people and pay higher wages than without it?
Well, I think that's yet to be certain. However, I know this will increase our costs. And so it can have nothing but a negative impact on our future and what we will do next year. There are other factors, of course, that come into hiring more employees and more co-workers. But there's just no way this can help us. And it's the exact opposite of the trend that we were heading on our cost for insurance.
Okay, so you would find this would be a hindrance rather than a help.
This would stifle my ability to create more jobs. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Falls?
We're seeing in Cleveland County with a lot of our businesses, they're going to be scaling back, taking full-time employees and putting those to part-time employees, reducing the number of workers. Personally, I expect to see a spike in our unemployment rate in Cleveland County.
So it would be a hindrance rather than a help to economic growth and more jobs.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you all for your testimony. Thank you for your time today. And I yield back.
Thank you. Good.
Mr. Waters, thank you for your testimony. You mentioned your issues related to compliance. Give us some idea of the hours or manpower that relates to the additional compliance requirements of your business.
Virtually every day, we start off with the telephone ringing, and obviously the questions are the normal questions you ask, as I mentioned before. And it's hard to explain over the telephone. We try to get people into our office to talk to them more about compliance and what's going on. I would say that there is a time element that's involved that we have to do as far as insurance agents are concerned. Is that we had to pass a test, study for another 4 or 5 hours, and then pass the test in order to qualify for P-Packet to sell the program and to understand it, which is okay, but every person in my office had to do that also, which takes a tremendous amount of time in order to do that. And then the technology part that is changing rapidly, as you know. We have to have better equipment, better programs in order to even we put groups into the system to make sure that they're in compliance and they're meeting the numbers that they're supposed to meet in order to qualify currently for this program. So it's a ongoing saga as to what, and I don't know how long this will go on, but it's an ongoing saga as to what it takes.
Well, currently, what percentage increase in compliance time is required, you think, by your staff?
I would say it's increased 15%, 20% of my staff now. Yeah.
Mr. Gauss, you made reference to uncertainty. You made reference to fear. These are major emotional words that bring into light the challenges that you anticipate unfolding ahead. What you don't anticipate, the unknowns. Give us some idea what would bring some sense of resolve or comfort to you? What would you like to see done? Given where we are today, in the context of the current legislation that's in front of us, if you were in our shoes, what would you like us to do?
I would stop and then fix it, but don't try to fix it while it's still going. There's no doubt that there are some good things for some people in the act. Underwriting, we're all going to share in the heavier expenses. There's no doubt about that. But you can't. I think somebody from Congress said it's like trying to fix a flat tire while the car is running. If we tried to do that in business, our customers would go somewhere else. They wouldn't buy our product. They'd go buy a product from somebody who knew what they were doing. It just, I'd stop and fix it.
Okay. Mr. Long.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your testimony. You refer to yourself as a job creator. You understand that you have some 150 jobs that you are in some measure responsible for in this region. That's a significant amount. How do you, and you lived with some, but I'm trying to get a handle in terms of the ongoing effects of this healthcare plan. How do you believe that's really going to impede your growth of your business and that of other businesses that you're involved in? Where do you see the shortfalls? What keeps you up at night in terms of your ability to expand and your ability to grow?
Well, in the Charlotte region, we're focused typically in a 50-mile radius of Gaston County. Our work is, and so we're very fortunate to have Charlotte, that metropolitan area that really drives our economy. So
it's a great area.
It is. It's a beautiful place, best place in the world to live. However, I believe that everything we're seeing from government, from a regulatory standpoint, and the Affordable Care Act, is dampening our growth every day. With all the issues we face as a nation on our economic side, with our government growing faster than the private sector, we need to grow out privately of our problems through, so that we can have a broader tax base instead of raising taxes and raising cost of doing business. And this is just another way that our government is not being a good partner at the right scale. And so I think it will just negatively impact, and a lot of times these regulations, the impact is hard to see on the surface. There are a lot of hidden costs, and there's a lot of hidden impact of slower growth. You're trying to prove a negative, and that's very difficult.
Mr. Pauls, thank you for your testimony. We get calls every day in our office. What do I do now? In your practice, can you shed some light on what you tell your customers, what they can do in light of the challenges that they face? What are the options? What advice can you give us?
Well, it's very confusing for my clients, as well as the industry. Even as late as last week, when the president spoke, he changed direction on the industry as well. I've met with many people and talked to them about their subsidy options, talked to them about coverage without subsidies, the different plans that are out there, limited plans, less plans than we had in 2013. And even after meeting with them and talking to them about the direction to go, they'll hear something on the news, they'll hear from the president, or they'll hear something from the newsman, and they'll make a phone call to me and say, I don't understand. Everything sounds different today than it did yesterday. And is there going to be any resolve to this? And my answer is, I don't know.
I go back.
We're going to do a quick second round if y'all stay for that. I just got a couple of questions. Mr. Long, as an employer of 160 or 146 plus, I guess, you, your wife, and a few others in the family, your brother, you've had insurance for a long time. Did you have insurance when you were growing up? Did your family do it for the previous generation?
Yes.
Even the first generation, there was some consideration?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure we did.
But for decades,
yes, decades, definitely, yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to ask you an anecdotal question that I know the answer to, but if you don't, just say you don't. But in your experience, the companies that don't provide health insurance, particularly in your industry, they tend to be less than 50, don't they?
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that always bothered me in the Affordable Care Act is we waive companies less than 50 when in fact the vast majority of the companies, in my recognition and in studies that have been done, the vast majority of the companies that do not provide health care are these small, sometimes fly-by-night companies, sometimes just startups, well-intended. The Act waived providing it for the companies who least likely provided it, while mandating the individual to have it. So, in a strange, perverse way, the changes you're seeing, small competitors who aren't providing health care and are not mandated to provide health care don't see. Do you see that as anti-competitive if we're going to have a law and then we're going to waive the people who least likely provide health care?
Of course, if that's the case with the employers under 50, we believe insurance partnership with our employees is something we must do to hire incredible co-workers and to provide the services that we want, the level of service we want to provide. But if it's not even across the board, there is the more and more chance of uneven competition.
Well, having been an electronics manufacturer, I agree that covering your employees gets you a better lead, to say the least. Mr. Gauss, the other thing that is in this act is this idea that if you lower people to part-time, particularly the restaurant industry and so on, you don't have to cover them. Does that make any sense to you that the part-time employee, the one least able to afford to pay the health care all by themselves, is exempted no matter how large a company is?
Not at all. I mean, in our industry, as well as the restaurant industry and other seasonal part-time industries, it may be very easy to take, and even someone who is making 32 hours or 34 hours down to 29 hours. You don't hear as much about it now because some large companies made the mistake of making that public about 18 months ago. So people have quit talking about the fact that they have actually done this, but they're doing it. What I don't understand is my turnover is 9 weeks in the staffing industry, which is okay for the staffing industry. And so the insurance underwriter underwrites my employee for 9 weeks. And then he goes somewhere else, whether it's to a permanent job, to another company, whatever, quits. Then all of a sudden, the insurance company has underwritten this guy for 9 weeks, and now he's gone. So I can't figure the accounting on that. And neither can the IRS, but they came to us and asked us.
Yeah, one of the things about federal mandates that we often pass them and then begin correcting them as soon as they're implemented. I guess my last question is a comment. I was in business for many years, and as a member of the chamber, we have speakers. And it's been about 15 years since the founder of Starbucks came to us. And I might note that Starbucks is a part-time employee. Most of the people that you see working at Starbucks are all part-time. But they have provided proportional health care benefits. In other words, they pay a certain amount into a health care benefit for every employee, no matter how few hours throughout their years. And I got to be honest, that behavior is behavior I'd like to have seen in the Affordable Care Act, and I'd still like to see. The idea that if someone has 2 part-time jobs, their employer would be encouraged to pay in a portion to what ultimately would end up being a combined. One of the things that I found in the Affordable Care Act that I don't understand is, for the most part, individuals don't have a system where they can go to the exchange and have their employers each pay in a portion to it. If they're, for example, in your staffing situation, you want to address that because you've obviously looked at the fact that you have people that are going to be in individual accounts on the exchange. They're going to come to you for 9 weeks, and they're going to go somewhere else. Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna step out on a limb and act like I know the answer to a question, but if I'm not mistaken, proportionate contributions is forbidden under the Act.
That's my understanding too. And
Now, I'm
again,
probably wrong.
Starbucks had a program that made sense long before there was a law. Well, it's, my time is expiring, but I just want you to understand that part of the listening session today is every one of us as members of Congress, hopefully in a bipartisan House, Senate, bicameral, will have an opportunity to see if we can't make some of those fixes. One of the challenges, and I'd ask you all, and for that matter, actuarials that may be listening to this, to weigh in on how it affects it, because we realize that these changes also would have consequences for cost. But these are areas that I personally am concerned that well-meaning employers, such as Starbucks over these many years, should be encouraged to continue doing what they're doing, not prohibited from it. Mr. McKenna?
Well, let me begin, Mr. Long, your business is a competitive one, so service and the quality of what you do matters a lot. But can you go out to the marketplace and just set your price?
No, sir.
Okay, I asked this, this is Congress we're talking to, so I just want to make sure.
You can set the price. The question is, will the customer come?
Right, exactly.
We can set any price we want, but that doesn't mean that we'll get it.
Why?
Because of open competition. Competition is an incredibly wonderful thing.
So competition will set price.
It makes us better.
So if you have less competition, well, let's say you have more competition, right? Prices come down.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Waters, you're in the health insurance business, right? How long have you been in the health insurance business?
33 years.
Okay. So let's walk through this. I come to you, a small employer, and I say, I'd like to buy a health insurance plan. This is a couple of years ago. How many options do I have?
What we do is that we would run this through we have about 4 or 5 carriers in our office as it relates to how many we get in North Carolina. So we take 4 or 5 of the biggest carriers. We run that through the formula in our computer system, try to find out which one of those gives you the best rate for what you're looking for, and then we go with that.
So let's say instead of 4 or 5 carriers, you have 2.
Then that breaks down the competition to where the 2 carriers.
Let me ask another question. We're sitting in North Carolina, but South Carolina is just a short, a 10-minute drive from where we sit. Can I get a health insurance plan from South Carolina?
No, I would love to have South Carolina because there's some good competition there.
Right. So competition, and the reason why I talk about it is competition matters. So we go in the individual market in North Carolina. Prior to Obamacare, we had 12 carriers. Now, after Obamacare, going into next year, we have 2. We have some counties, 61 out of 100 counties in North Carolina. You only have 1 provider in the exchange. What does that do for competition?
No competition.
Doesn't pull down the price, doesn't make things more competitive. And I say this because this is an important ingredient when we talk about health care reform. Health insurance reform, more competition. So employers and individuals have more options, right? So I ask this because that competition matters. Mr. Waters, what's the main reason why people don't buy health insurance?
Primarily, price drives the item. And then some people are looking for specific coverages regardless of price.
Okay.
But price normally drives it.
Price drives, I'm sorry?
Drives the item that we're looking for.
Okay. So price drives, so this question about competition relates right back.
Right.
Okay. Now, this is something in this whole discussion, instead of simply me as a member of Congress saying I didn't vote for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, well, you have to be for something instead, right? And I support a comprehensive plan that would address this, would allow competition across state lines. Would you find that beneficial in your offerings?
I would find that beneficial, yes.
Okay. Now, so, Mr. Long, in terms of your employees, now, what are they looking for their health insurance? I mean, you currently have a plan that you like, but unfortunately, in order to keep it, you're going to have to pay a whole lot more. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to be able to keep it. It's going to change. Our plan will change.
So you're not able to keep your current health insurance?
Our plan will change next year. We just deferred that decision until December of next year.
Okay. So what does this mean for your employees?
Well, our employees want the best coverage they can get for the dollars that they're willing to pay to protect their families in case of a healthcare problem. They don't want anything for free, but they do want good coverage at a reasonable cost, and they want input into what they're receiving. They want choices. We need more choices instead of less choices, and I think all of us do.
Mrs. Overby, would you like to have more choices in terms of your health insurance? Would you like to be able to make the choice on whether or not you purchase a policy that covers a procedure you are morally opposed to?
Of course, I think that's what Americans want. We don't want to have to be forced to buy something that we don't have any choice in the matter. When I woke up this morning, I live in a capitalistic society, not a socialism society. And I want to be able to make those choices. I want to be able to have that competition. I want to be able to go and look, because as an American citizen, I have the freedom and hopefully the right to do that. And I want those rights to continue to be able to do that.
So, I look at this, there's a lot of pledges made about this law. I think people have various opinions about it, but disappointment is the greatest word I hear most consistent word I hear from my constituents. And so I thank you for taking the time to testify today, and I know it's a challenge to take time out of all of your busy schedules, but it means a lot that you would take the time to tell your stories. And I appreciate those in the crowd that have their statements that they want to share and place in the congressional record. The chairman has made that possible, and I appreciate your willingness to tell your stories. What we want is greater coverage and care at a lower price. We want more competition and choice, not fewer or less. And so I think we're all unified in that. And the fact is that the higher insurance prices under this law aren't Republican increases or Democrat increases. They're increases that American families are bearing or trying to bear. So it's not a partisan question. It's just a practical question about the cost for families. And so, Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Overby, your points related to coverage that is not needed, and we Cadillac plans, everybody buys the same inside the same box. We hear that. In fact, I co-sponsor a bill with Congresswoman Elmers, as I believe my colleagues do, that would restrict the coverage for those items that you need and that you want. So hopefully clear minds will prevail, and we'll have a better policy come through that. I would direct my last comments or questions to Mr. Waters and Mr. Falls. From your experience in your insurance business, as you look at required actuaries and the pool risk, what do you anticipate will occur is those who sign up through the exchanges, what will we have in terms of a risk pool? Will it be adequate? Will it be balanced? Will it only embrace those who have a pre-existing condition? As you look at the motivation for people who buy insurance, the Congressional Budget Office said that the healthcare plan is unsustainable. Max Baucus, the Democrat chairman of the Senate Bank Committee, said it's a train wreck. Well, this has some major implications. And so I think I'd just like to know from your personal experience what you would anticipate down the road as these pools are being assembled.
I'd like to answer that question and also reference Congressman McHenry's prior question on inclusive health. to give an example on how I think from experience this will happen. Inclusive Health had a state option as well as had a federal option that was canceled earlier this year. It was you no longer can sign up on the federal option. When that plan was first introduced, there was an influx of federal monies that was put into that plan, along with premiums being paid in by the people that elected to get on those plans. The premiums that were being paid in were not enough to cover the expenses of the plan. And eventually those rates had to increase. And that's the understanding that we, as insurance agents, that's what we were told. The reason why they canceled that federal plan earlier this year rather than stopping it December 31st along with the state plan. The other reason why this plan is being canceled, both the federal option and the state options, one of the requirements to be eligible for those plans is you cannot be eligible for coverage anywhere else. Because the Affordable Care Act, essentially, there are no health insurance questions on the applications for health insurance now. There's no health questions other than if you use tobacco or if you're pregnant, and that's just to determine, the question on pregnancy is to determine how many people you're going to count in your household. Because there's no health questions on that now, everything is based on income. The subsidies that are out there, the lack of underwriting, as Mr. Gauss spoke to earlier, this is going to go. I believe this is going to go the way that most insurance policies that are not well thought out will go, and they'll eventually either have to increase premiums drastically, or those plans will just have to go away.
This business model is based on the presupposition that those who are younger would also buy into it. Is it your experience that that age group buys into insurance at this time? Will they fulfill their role in terms of the risk pool requirement?
The premise that the young people are going to be the salvation of this plan, I find is hard to believe. Whenever you have someone that's 30 years old or younger and they elect to take a plan, most 30-year-olds or younger that I know just coming out of college in our area make less than $45,960. That is the upper limit where you qualify for subsidies. So those premiums they're going to be paying in are not really going to be that significant in most cases, and are not going to help the pool.
Thank you. Mr. Waters?
I would agree with everything he said. I just recently saw a program that came out of Kentucky, and 4,600 people that signed up. 25%, and they used 0 to 30. I think 25% of people had signed up of that 4,000, and then from 30 to about 55, there was only 34% that had signed up, and from 35 to 64, I think it was 39% of the people had signed up. Obviously, the older people need it, the younger people do.
We'll take it. That ends my question. Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming in. It's a huge statement by you from our Congress to come to our region. I just really applaud the effort that you made.
Thank you. I want to thank all our witnesses today. I want to thank the audience for being an extremely good audience.